Okay, so let's get started here. So you probably know me, Christine Elder. I'm a naturalist, environmental educator, and visual artist, and I love the marine environment. I studied marine biology in school, and I scuba dive and snorkel all over the world. So I'm so happy to share this with you today. National Dolphin Day. So no matter what nation you're watching from, you probably love dolphins. And if you're on any coastal nation, it's probable that you've seen dolphins, especially the one we're focusing on today. So National Dolphin Day is meant to bring awareness to dolphins and the threats they face. Oh, Megan saw a dolphin today. Well, that's right. You live in Florida. Wonderful. And Sophia, you guys have seen them off the coast of California. Yes. So everybody's familiar with dolphins. We all love them, right? And they always are smiling at us. So, and you may see them also if you've ever been whale watching or on a fishing boat. Some species, especially the one we're talking about today, the common dolphin, is commonly on, loves to bow ride, as they call it, or follow the in the wake of boats. So let me tell you about the tools we're going to be using today. I did email you that list, and I hope you got that. Now, of course, it doesn't really matter what you use today. You use whatever you want, but this is what I'm going to be demonstrating with. I'm going to be using my Uniposca white opaque pen for some highlights, and then an ink pen just to give a few dark areas around the blowhole and the eye. Then we'll have our 6B shading pencil and a mechanical pencil for doing our outline. And then the Tombow Mono eraser, which is my favorite. I've shared with you before, which is a very fine tipped eraser. And then our smudging tool. So anyway, if you don't have something to sketch with yet, or the handout, which would be very helpful, you could get those now. But we're going to spend a few moments first talking about dolphins in general. You know, I'm passionate about sharing information about wildlife of the world and inspiring you to help protect them. So we are talking about dolphins, but that also really includes porpoises. So dolphins and porpoises are, of course, marine mammals. They're toothed marine mammals. So that means they are catching their prey like fish compared to the baleen whales. And so when you divide them up amongst the marine mammals, then there's the cetaceans like the whales and the dolphins and the porpoises. So we're talking about dolphins and porpoises today, but mainly dolphins. So what is the difference? So dolphins are the more common down here. So we're going to be talking about those some more, but let me get this out of the way. The porpoises. So the porpoises are less common. There's only about 6 species of those. They're smaller and kind of chunkier. They don't have a beak. They kind of have just a fat forehead here and not a long beak like these guys. And then they have shorter fins and flippers, and they're kind of quieter in smaller groupings, and you may have heard of harbor porpoises or Dall's porpoises, but they also include the endangered vaquita. And so anyway, dolphins are much more diverse. There's about 32 species of those, including 5 species that are river dolphins. And you may have joined me for my Amazon river dolphin sketching workshop in the past. So yeah, again, those are a little larger. They're more gregarious in bigger pods and that kind of thing. Okay, so getting that out of the way, the difference between porpoises and dolphins. Okay, and then so they both have this streamlined body, and they even have the vestiges of their rear limbs from many millions of years ago when they were living on the land. And so here's another picture. They often are kind of gray, sometimes some black, sometimes some white. But basically, often they're darker on the top than the bottom to help them to be what we call counter shaded. So they are more camouflaged from their predators from the top because they kind of blend in with the darker seafloor. And their predators can include sharks and killer whales, and of course, humans, which we'll talk about at the end, the threats they face. So today's focus species is the common dolphin, and we're talking about that one because no matter where you're tuning in from in the world, you might have them in your oceans. They are the most common and widespread and have some of the largest pods, up to 10,000 individuals. Isn't that amazing? And so they've been known since antiquity. And oh, wait, what happened to my picture? Where was that picture? Sorry. Oh, here it is. They've been known since antiquity. Here's actually a picture from Crete in 1700 BC. So that's thousands of years ago. So dolphins, especially the common dolphin, have been depicted in mosaics and in frescoes for thousands of years. And they were in lots of mythology, and they were also hunted for their meat. And so, yeah, they've been known for a long time. Okay, sorry. Here we go. Getting back to this one, the common dolphin. Okay, so yeah, they range between kind of temperate to subtropical. So, like those folks of you watching from California, they're most common from Southern California down into Central America. And so usually they are the most common species you'd see riding on the bows of boats. They're really agile and fast. They can go up to 25 miles an hour. They're very flexible. They can jump high up to 25 feet. And so they can be in pods up to 10,000. So during the day, they're very social and gregarious, and they will rest and socialize. And then at night, they will go hunting for their food in the deeper waters, over 30 species of fish, crustaceans, squid, that kind of thing. And they're really vocal. They've got lots of different sounds, clicks and squeaks, and whistles as well. When they're growing up, they will develop their own little whistle, which is like their own little unique voice that the other members of their group will recognize. And they do travel in family groups of up to 20. And then that's who they stay together with at night. And then during the day, when they're more social, they get together in those pods that can number in the thousands. And so these are the things we want to notice about the common dolphin before we start sketching. This is actually the drawing we're going to be sketching, or the photograph that is, we're going to be sketching. So I hope that you did get a chance to download those high resolution images, because I do purchase those for you. And actually there's 2 pages of those showing 3 different dolphins in different positions. And so they have this, they're most known for having this unique color pattern, kind of this hourglass, these 2 lines that cross. And in the front, it's sort of this creamy color. And then the back, it's sort of gray. That gray isn't just the water droplets. That's actually a gray sort of triangle there. And then there's also some sort of ghosted lines of kind of lighter colors, and then darker colors too. There's this dark line here, and there's actually a dark line under the flipper too. And then a dark line between the melon or rostrum and the beak. And these guys have actually been divided up into 2 species, the common dolphin, and this is the short-beaked common dolphin, which is more common, and it has a shorter beak than the other one. And then, like other marine mammals, they have to breathe, so they have a blowhole up here on top. And of course, they swim with a pair of flippers, and the fin on the top helps keep them from rolling from side to side. And then they get most of their forward propulsion from the tail fluke. And yeah, so here, like I showed you, we're not going to be adding the water in our photograph, in our drawing, but you can. And so I've got lots of pictures of how the water flows over them. You know, they are very streamlined and spindle shaped, very smooth, so they can swim very fast. And what else do I want to say? Oh, yeah. So they only grow to about 6 feet and up to 300 pounds. And what else? What else? Yeah, that's the main thing I want to talk about right now. Okay. And then, yeah, noticing their bodies, they are quite flexible up and down. So unlike a fish, the marine mammals get their propulsion from pushing their tail up and down with really strong muscles. That's how they go forward. And you see their tail is divided up into 2 parts, and it's got kind of a V shape in the center. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to show you there. And then the head, this is the close up again. We see the blowhole with kind of like a highlight and a shadow there. And then the eye with a larger kind of black coloration around it that makes the eye look a little bit bigger. And then just another version here of the blowhole, although actually this is a bottlenose dolphin. Okay, and then as you probably know from all of my workshops, I talk about things to notice in terms of when you're sketching, like the proportions, and we kind of already talked about like the relative proportion of the length of the beak, and then angles, so like the angle of the triangular fin and flippers here. Alignments, like what is aligned to each other. Not a lot here. He's got a kind of a flat belly, but an arched back. And then negative shapes. So we can see that in this still picture here pretty well, like this V shape between the body and the front flippers, and sort of this, I think they call it falsate, kind of this half moon shape here. I saw a beautiful moon this morning. It looks like it's waxing, I believe. It's really pretty this morning. Anyway, keep going. Okay, and then there's my drawing we're going to be finishing up. And then let's see. Okay, so yeah, let's get started because I promised you I wouldn't take too long with this. I do have some more information about the dolphin we can talk about while we're sketching it. But I did promise to try to keep this a little bit shorter today, especially because this is a weekday. So I'm going to also, though, tell you that dolphins face multiple threats, okay? Most of the threats relate to being caught in nets that are set for fish and sharks, and they get caught in those and drowned. But of course, they're also threatened by pollution, by climate change, because the climate is warming the water, and warmer water has less oxygen in it and holds less fish. Of course, they're competing with humans for their prey because they eat the same fish that we do. Of course, they can get entangled like this, oil spills. So lots of things, even vessel strikes. They can get hit by boats. So hopefully you're ready. We're going to start with our mechanical pencil outline. And so I've just got a smaller picture of the dolphin here. And then we're going to draw it big here. And we're going to start with the mechanical pencil outline, and then the shadowing, and at the end, the highlights. Okay, so let's get started. Let me get my mouse out of the way. So I'm just marking the edges of the paper, kind of where the beak is on the left and the tail is on the right. and just spending a moment looking at the dolphin, which we kind of did already. So we're going to start with that beak. And I want you to be lighter than this, okay? I'm just drawing darker so you can see this. So this is definitely darker than I normally would draw when I'm doing my first outline, just because I want to make it a lot easier to not feel like you've been married to a certain line and you're afraid to erase it. But look at that nice arch of the back. And then there's another little bump there from the muscles of the tail. We're just going to get that line first and then add the dorsal fin. And remember, these guys are super flexible, and so you don't have to be exact in this because this is drawing from a photo that's just a moment of time. So at any moment, they might have their tail more up or down. So don't worry at all about trying to copy me exactly, because I'm not even exact here on this. So now we're going to try to place our fin here, just noticing kind of how tall it is, how wide it is, and how the front is shaped differently than the back. So we've got kind of that C shape. And then once we get that, we can erase that other part because that's not going to show up as much, except for a little highlight we'll add later where the fin meets the body. So as you're drawing, just double check, looking back and forth at your reference photo. It is kind of important to have the shape of the dorsal fin because different dolphin and whale species have very differently shaped fins. So the end of the body kind of comes to a triangle there, and then we're going to add the triangle of the tail fin or the fluke. And it's kind of hard to see it because it's sort of covered by a lot of water spray. But again, this is something that can move a lot, but make sure you get that little divot there that I showed you in the previous photo where it gets a little skinnier in the middle. There's like a notch. And then I was just kind of lightening up that line a little bit. Now, sorry, my hand is kind of measuring from the photo on the cheat sheet. So I was just noticing the depth of the body here. Just double checking. Sorry, I know usually I have that photo, but I thought since this guy is so long and skinny, I'd rather just have him full length here and a tiny photo on the bottom right. So I'm just kind of getting the bottom line, and notice it is a straighter line than the arched back. So we can get that first before we add the flippers. Well, we only see the left flipper. The right one is hidden by the body. But I do notice there's a little angle here at the tail, just like at the top of the tail and the bottom right there, which is probably about where the vent is. And again, double checking your width or body depth, that is. Another way to say that. Now we're going to decide where to put the flipper. We're just seeing the animal's left flipper. And I decided to kind of get the beak a little bit more accurate here. And then the flipper, and it's kind of going back to the right. And then noticing the very back of the flipper is sort of aligned vertically to the front of the dorsal fin. You'll see me measuring that in a minute. Again, these flippers can be moved a lot up and down, so you don't have to be exactly the same as mine. They're very flexible to help them move. And like we'd said before, these guys are quite acrobatic. They can jump up to 20 feet in the air. So these flippers are just like our front hands. We can put them in a lot of positions depending on what we need to do. And again, just kind of double checking. And you can notice how there's a vertical line, sort of imaginary line between the front of the dorsal fin and the back of the flipper. And now I'm just lightening a little bit because I don't want a really obvious outline when I start shading. Because to make this really realistic and not look like coloring page, we just want to show and think about the different values and not have a really strong outline. Anyway, let's start finishing up the head here. So here's a close-up of the head. So we're going to look a bit more at that beak, and you notice, see the forehead and comes down to the beak. There's a really obvious angle there. And then the mouth, and the mouth kind of looks like it's frowning a little bit, kind of goes down. Mine doesn't, because I didn't see the close-up picture as much as you can here on your screen, depending on how big your screen is. But the mouth kind of angles down, I notice, to just right in front of the eye. So that's something I really didn't notice while I was drawing it. So just make sure you're double checking more with the photo on the right. And then the eyeball. And that crease, kind of there is actually a physical sort of crease there at the base of the beak. Now I'm going to add the blowhole later. I'm just going to add highlights and shadows for that later, so we won't forget about that. Now we're thinking about our value scale, which I've mentioned all the time almost. So you guys know what that is, just thinking about where the light and dark parts are. And I'm first just going to give an overall, I was just showing you my tools there. First, we're just going to get an overall light value on the whole dolphin. And I'm using the side of my pencil very, very lightly. It really doesn't matter what kind of medium you're working with, whether it's pencil or charcoal or watercolor or finger paints or whatever. What you want to focus on now is just starting to think about these values. Where are the lights and the darks? And those are going to be related to the color patterns. Again, this dolphin species, the common dolphin, has a really unique color pattern that no other dolphin has, with these kind of like crisscrossed lines on the side, the hourglass shape on the side there. But it's not white. Our eyes might look at it and say it's white, but it's not white. It's a creamy color. So I am adding, a little bit of graphite everywhere. And now I'm just blending it. So we're just going to make a few iterations of this. And depending on what medium you're using, you might or might not be able to get as dark as the actual dolphin. So if you notice, the top of the dolphin is sort of a black. It's got some gray and black in it, very glossy and smooth and wet and shiny. So you may or may not be able to get quite that dark. I'm using a 6B pencil, And so now I'm just going to sort of delineate that hourglass shape so then I can start to know where I'm going to be darker and lighter. So there's this line that goes from the forehead and then arches up and then crosses down towards the belly. So this species has another common name other than the common dolphin, and one of them is the crisscross dolphin. Another one is the hourglass dolphin. But yeah, since it lives all over, it's got lots of different common names. Now you can see I'm using this eraser, this very narrow eraser, to help me lighten up some areas. So you may or may not have this eraser. But you see there are some sort of subtle stripes, kind of lighter areas within that cream colored, kind of yellowish cream or tan beige side. And then part of the flipper is a little bit lighter, both because it's in the sun and also because it's less pigmented. So now I'm just looking at, just kind of moving along and referring to my photo, darkening up some areas. These guys mature at about 10 years old, and the females will have one calf at a time that they'll nurse for, well, yeah, they'll be pregnant for about a year, and then they'll nurse their calf for about 6 months, and then they'll breed the year after that. But not a whole lot is known about their breeding and reproduction. Another common name they have is the saddleback dolphin or the white-bellied dolphin. But yeah, they do have these kind of subtle dark and light pigments. And its close relative, the long-beaked common dolphin, has a little bit different patterns on the side. So now we're just, again, looking at our value scale, comparing it to our photograph, and just going darker. So again, this darkness relates both to like the reflections of the sunlight as well as the actual pigment of the body. And so I'm pushing harder now. And this is sort of the way I like to work. You probably know I just like to go a little bit at a time so that I just keep working on everything. Using the side here, and yeah, noticing it's darkest at the top, just about halfway down to the tail, and that back area is kind of a speckled gray. And I'm not worrying really about the bright highlights on the head yet. We'll add those with our gel pens, because it's really hard to just avoid that area and make it look right. So it's kind of easier just to add the highlights. And there will be a highlight here that I'm adding a little bit here where the fin meets the body. And the back of the fin, I notice, is a lot more in shadow than the front of the fin. Some of these species are kept in captivity, but it's much more common to see bottlenose dolphins in captivity, like at public aquariums. Um, Meg, you might have those in Florida. So putting a lot more pressure now. Now I was trying to add some of those highlights there, but they're going to be much brighter at the end when I add the Uniposca pen. Not sure how many of you guys have one of those, but those are really great for adding highlights in, and they come in different sizes so that you can get little tiny highlights like the reflection on an eyeball, or larger highlights like we have here on the top of this dolphin. So now using my blending tool, and I'm noticing that even within that kind of creamy colored side, there are highlights and shadows. And then there's a lighter stripe, actually 2 lighter stripes. Of course, if you see these guys, if you're out on a fishing vessel or whale watching, you're not going to see all these little details, but you'll definitely see that arc of cream on the side, which is unique. And then they have some darker markings and this stripe as well that I'm adding. And then towards the back of the tail, yeah, that big gray area now, it's kind of speckly. So it's kind of not a solid gray, but I'm trying to just give it some little speckled patterns. Now, again, the tail is kind of covered with a lot of that white water. And so you may or may not want to cover up some of the back of the dolphin with that. Here I'm noticing there's a visual separation in values between the flipper and the gold or cream colored body. So just darkening that up. And the dolphin's smile could have sort of come down more towards the eye. I noticed in that close-up photo. I'll add that on mine right now. I think I overdid it. So whatever works best for you as you're kind of getting these details, just working wherever you feel like you need to. And I worked on my tail some more after the video. I'll show you that when we're done. The tail looked kind of funny, and so I fixed it. And make sure you have that little divot there that I just added between the left and right part of the tail, the fluke of the tail. So I really love this narrow eraser for being able to clean up the edges. Right, and so here is where I added this, the blowhole. So I would do that now if I were you. Who's got a nice opaque white pen you can use for those highlights? And also a narrow permanent ink pen would be good too, to put under it to emphasize the highlight, and maybe some pen on the eye and on the mouth. Okay, so yeah, I got to get going then. Yeah, turning out to be a beautiful sunny day here. So I got to get some work done in the yard. Okay, take care. Bye bye.